I can see Dr. Reem. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I hear you loud and clear, Dr. Musa, and thank you so much
Oh,
for your
thank you very much
brilliant.
for giving your time. And I was really excited to speak with you. And public is really excited. I have a lot of questions and responses to ask from you. Of course, time is very limited. So I would request you to please give your a formal introduction to the audience so they can know you better. And of course, then you can go ahead with your thoughts to share today.
Sure. Dr. Musa, thank you so much for that brilliant opening, and all your points are so well received. And we're thankful to have men like you who are ready to support women and take us to that next level. I really was moved by all your examples, and you're so spot on. And I do hope that other men that are listening do follow this lead. Good day to everyone. Good day to everyone from all over the world. My name is Remi Duyile. I'm a Nigerian American that have been in the United States for over 37 years, a former vice president of Bank of America, someone who understood the power of rising up as a woman in a male-dominated industry in America. But Dr. Musa spoke it all. Other developed nations are doing a better job of ensuring that they give their women the platform, or maybe their women are finding ways to access the platform. So I did rise up in corporate America, a serial entrepreneur, a philanthropist. My goal is to ensure that financial inclusion is open to all and all women everywhere they are. And I'm thankful for the Berkeley platform and what they do to ensure that voices like us are being heard all over the world, and we can share our best practices and our thoughts to ensure that not only the women, even the emerging young leaders, take their rightful positions, so we can all create that world of peace that he had alluded to. And men are part of the game, and the men are our first love. Like you said, that your mother is your first love. Our fathers are our first love in the home. So that should continue in even the corporate setting. So I'm excited to talk to you about what I've been asked to talk about today. So Dr. Musa, I don't know if I can continue with my presentation, or I needed to just wait to get your lead.
Please go ahead.
All right.
Please go ahead.
Okay, so this morning, this day, wherever you are, the topic that I will be talking about is strategic positioning of women for investors and meaningful partnerships. As women, we know that whatever a woman can do, a man can do. Whatever a man can do, a woman can do. Is said as a cliche, but there's a process that needs to get you there. There are things that needs to be done, and Dr. Musa said it all. Policies have to be designed intentionally to affect women positively. If it's not done, a lot of people will not take the time to do it. We also need to be able to address women leadership. What are the challenges? What are the needed competencies that we need to have as women? Of course, when we have the competencies, how do we leverage it? How do we make it that we're confident and competent enough to be given a platform like this, like the Berkeleys, who intentionally help women to find how to be a better self? Once they have a passion, from what I've heard, they create a provision through coaching, through training. How do we make sure that our women have such? Leveraging the power of choice. Women need to have the access to choosing. And the power of choice means that whoever the decision makers are, whoever the policy makers are, they do not judge anyone by their sex. They judge them by the content and also by their competency. So giving women the opportunity to choose and to be intentional about their career. How can a woman have a career? How can a woman even have a voice if they're not given a platform to be able to birth a voice that the world is waiting for? We also need to rethink systems and challenges and assumptions. It has been historically assumed that women need to be on the back seat. Sometimes, yes. But if a woman has the guts, though, to be on the front end and they've been well educated enough to be competent and to represent, we should have a he for she support to ensure that together we build a better world, because that's what it's all about. We also want to consider a women-only leadership, a leadership that is inclusive of women. When women are together, we are nurturing beings. We are multitasking people. Our heart, we lead from our heart. We don't just lead, we lead from our heart. We look at what is expected and how can it affect the world, the nation. So we need to be intentional and have situations and create opportunities where women leaders are all that matters. So at that point, the think tank, the brainstorming can come. For instance, when you are part of I'm a commissioner in my state in Maryland. When we are at the table discussing issues, you would immediately spot on see the thinking of the women and the men. It doesn't mean that one is better than the other. It just means that we have to be positioned to allow our thinking to be embraced. And we have to be positioned to allow our thinking to be deposited so other people can hear it. Even the men don't always want to be in antagonist. They don't want to antagonize what we're doing, but sometimes they don't understand it. But when we're given the opportunity to be at the table and our voices are heard, it affects how we position for investors. I wanted to draw this setting before I go into how do you strategically position someone for investor and partnerships. It all begins with how you are, the environment that you are raised in. It begins with the environment that you migrate in. If the corporations create enabling environment. For me, Bank of America created an enabling environment, and I rose from a teller to vice president, even though I had 4 strikes, Black, female, Nigerian accent, still was able to rise up. But if such environment was not created, somebody could get stuck with me saying, oh, you have an accent, I can't hear you. But they look beyond that. So that's what I'm challenging all of us to do. And when we do that, we can position our women strategically for investors, because all investors are looking for is good opportunities to invest and to guarantee that they can get their return back on their investment. It doesn't matter if it's a woman or a man that makes it happen. We also want to ensure that we create the right networks. I know you're saying, Remi, what is the right network? The right network is just what we're in right now. The networks that are intentional about making sure that policy talks are done at the table, relationships are being harnessed. When we see someone who is striving, someone who is already knowledgeable in a field, we should look beyond whether they're a woman or a man. It should just be a level playing field. And you can tell, because women, we are very sensitive beings. We have a way of sensing when we're accepted and when we're just being tolerated. And I want to say today that women are sick and tired of being tolerated, especially when you have paid your price, when you have paid your dues, and you've got the knowledge just like any man. So what women would generally do is just drift away if we believe that we have to come and prove ourselves again when we have already done it. So strategic positioning for women is having an environment where our voices will be heard, where we are able to show forth our knowledge, our talent, and our treasure, where we're also being able to bring other women along. And I want to stop for a minute and also talk to my women out there. The ball is also in our court. For this strategic positioning for investors or meaningful partnerships, how many people are you reaching out of your comfort zone, out of your zip code, out of your everyday network to show and to share platforms with, to share opportunities with? The ball is in our court. We've got to reach out. and find women like us, young and old and whatever, to let them know about opportunities. It doesn't mean they will embrace it all the time, but we need to do a better job of reaching out. Each one touch one. And when we do that, our positioning for the investors would come. Who are investors? Women invest. Women are investors too. So are men. So investors has nothing to do with your sex. What it has to do is what are you? How are you packaged? In my banking world, we say, are you bankable? Are we packaging ourselves to be able to speak in front of anybody that is somebody about a course that we believe in? All we are doing in the world is trying to find solutions to create opportunities so we can all have a good life. And women are not exempted from that. So our mindset, when we position, when we design policies, I speak to our governmental powers who are there to represent us. When you're representing us, you're representing male and female. And a smart representative of anybody would ensure that we move everybody along and that we create platforms where our policies are intentional. And when those policies are being created, that women voices are there. Policies that would make it work-life balance so that when you are making presentation, people see that. With COVID, we can see that a lot of things that we're doing are virtual. And I've had colleagues who are big shots with their company. In meetings, their child will walk in. If it's a baby, that baby don't know any restrictions. They just want to come in. We need to be embracive of whatever situation that is there. And we need to create it and have that intentionality. Like Dr. Musa was speaking, I was like, wow, if we have a lot of he for she, who would not just talk? Because talk is cheap, you all. But what Berkeley is doing, they have created a platform for all of us, for women who are hearing us right now. You have no excuses. I heard them say, you bring your opportunities, and there are platforms that they can help to ensure that you become and birth that idea or that business opportunity that you want to do. When you consider a woman-owned leadership, just a woman-only leadership, it doesn't mean that the whole corporation will be all women. Let's make it majority. Let's have committees that we know that are meaningful and ensure that we have our women sitting on that. So that is what is called strategic positioning, because there's no school that you go to and say, oh, I'm going to learn about strategic positioning for women. It's all in your mindset. And how do things in your mind become set? It's through your experience, it's through your exposure, it's through your expertise, and so on. So what we're saying is that there's got to be an intentionality in designing things that would help us to make sure that when we're building, we're having that sensitivity to carrying the female along. And when we do that, we build for the world. Our building for the world is going to be intentional. Every woman, every man deserves to experience the best. And as fathers out there, as men out there who have sisters, if you think of it from that perspective, you would never want to limit them. So why would you limit a coworker who is female? So the strategic positioning is also creating platforms whereby you are also making referrals, intentional referrals to help one another, knowing that we're all building together. And when we can display successes in different facets, we will get more women on board. And I know that I'm very close to my finishing time. We want to experience driven development. Driven development are created through platforms that will give you coaching opportunities, training opportunities, even just simple social opportunity where all you're doing, you're not talking about business, you're just talking about the possibilities and just having fun. Those are ways that you can foster relationship with investors. People do business with people they like and trust. What I'm saying with strategic positioning, there has to be positioning whereby we begin to earn each other's trust. We begin to create platforms like Berkeley just did now to allow voices all over the world to be heard. And there could be a word, there could be a voice that you will hear today for my women who are listening or men that will help you move to that, pivot to that next level. When I started as a teller, I knew I was going to be a vice president. I didn't know when because I went in with an MBA. But there were people who allowed their shoulders for me to lean on. I also, as a woman, didn't see that as an impediment. So it begins with us. We've got to think beyond that we are women and this and that. It's not that. What knowledge do you carry? How are you impacting knowledge to others? How are you building more knowledge for yourself so you can sit with anybody and be able to offer your words of wisdom? Because all we are trying to do, as I close, is to make the world a better place. And the women cannot be left behind because the women are relevant to everything that we do. The women will make decisions that will even make companies be more sustainable because they think about the whole nation when they're making decisions. So I want to thank Berkeley for this opportunity. We only have a few minutes. I want to thank you for creating this opportunity and this platform. And I do hope that it's continuous and that it's intentional so we can have testimonials, not just with the women, with the emerging leaders. Thank you so very much, Dr. Musa. Thank you to Berkeley for this great.
Dr. Remi, your thoughts are really beautiful, and I know that you gave us only 15 minutes, but I want to take 10 minutes extra from your side. I want to feel and look like a dream of a Nigerian-born a girl who born in Nigeria, and she managed to reach to United States, and she studied well, and she contributed to the society in States. What I feel is this is technically called as a brain drain. So if a good mind of Nigeria moves to, say, Australia, UK, or United States, so you can see that there will be a gap in these countries, and I'm sure that every like-minded person, every progressive person like you would always strive to settle in a place where there is a social security structure, where there is a respect for a woman, and where there is education opportunities available, and that you find in United States, so you settle over there. So, but I can see that this opportunity is not available to rest of 100, 200 million people. You are one of very selective and blessed people who got this opportunity. So how a Nigerian woman think about when and how she feels that when she don't get a social security structure, where she don't get access to a good health care free of cost education. So I want you to share on behalf of these Nigerian female how they think.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Musa. I want to also give credit back to Nigeria because the foundational stages of my life, 17 years of my life, were in Nigeria. And what I ended up becoming and carrying on in America was as a result of the lovely family that I grew in. My father, especially, determined, knowing that I have to get educated and I have to be relevant to the system because that's the tradition of my family. So kudos to how we are raised back home and what brings us the energy to come here. So to my fellow Nigerians, and you know that even people who are in Nigeria, there's a lot of women in Africa that are doing big stuff. It's not, you don't necessarily have to travel out of the country to make things happen. But for those who maybe are there, it's really what you make out of your experience. All the things I described were not that easy. Dr. Musa, we can talk offline and I can share all of the heartaches that I went through for 17 years. But that is also going to be part of the process. One thing for sure is that as diaspora, the brain drain can be a brain drain. And that's what our company is doing to ensure that we're a bridge to helping that divide. And we're making the connections with the likes of you, likes of people in Africa during our conference. That was the intention. Even though we can't all uproot ourselves and go back to our respective countries, there's no limit to what you can do. I know a Dr. Musa now, if there are things that I know you can solve, I'm going to come to your company. So right there, those who are not even here, they can leverage your expertise. That's what we need to build. I can sit here and say, oh, we all need to go back home now. You know, it's not going to be feasible and it's not going to be productive. What will be productive is creating platforms like you're creating now with intentionality to be able to be a bridge and continue to solve problems. Those who need to travel out, travel out. Those who are in country continues to build and breath their greatness, because the greatness is not in the country you come to. It's just the environment that needs to be designed. I know some fine young women and men who are doing stuff that when I see it, I'm like, wow. And they go through the heartaches to do it. How can we provide support system for them to be able to use their brain power conveniently and conducively to add value to the world? So you're right. My being here is not accidental, but it's a call to action to see how can we be that true bridge that can add value wherever we are, not just in Africa, everywhere we have friends in.
That's great. And I have another question. Like, for example, have you ever thought that um, always it's a man candidate and the man dominant cabinets in developing countries? Have you ever thought that maybe you form sort of awareness in women that they come out, they come as leaders, and they make a women party where most of the participants are female, and of course it's a male-female alignment. It's not only all females, but because other parties, the male-female gender is still male is more, female are less. I saw in some developing countries, they have, say, for example, 30 cabinet, so 27 are male and 3 are female, and which female are just like, you know, when you make a cake and you put a cherry on it. So she's not the part of the main cake, you know, it's just for satisfying some human rights or some international regulators that, oh yes, we have a woman in the parliament, but there's no really worth they are doing to these countries. So do you think that women never thought to lead or may she give up to come actually in policy making, because policy making is the first step to come towards a change. So if any time of your life, would you think about these things that women need to come out, that there should be a more female representations in parliament, and you will play a role to activate any women in your country?
Absolutely. Giving up is never in my vocabulary. Let me start with that straight up. And also to say that financial inclusion is very important. Until we can crack the code to financial inclusion, to create an enabling environment where women can thrive, to make their own money, to create their own enterprises, and all of these things, it will be hard for us women to be a big player. And I see that is changing. We have a few women who are, who are doing their best to ensure they have such financial inclusion system. And policy, if you're not at the table when policies are made, you're going to be at the end and you have to execute it. So what we need to do intentionally is building our women and supporting them to know that, yes, you are a woman. Yes, you can be this, but it cannot just be by lip service. It's got to be an intentional systems whereby there's a financial inclusion model where a woman can If I tell you I can help you find money and I show you because I have a network that can do it, by the time you see me next time, you're not going to just look at me as any particular, you're just going to see me as Remi, the solution provider, right? So until we create such environment where we have financial inclusion model where women who are doing business are supported well enough, they're able to breath their creativity and they're able to leverage their creativity for the betterment of nations, it's going to be hard to play big. Having said that, the government also, they are losing by not including their women, by not making, forget about what the United Nations says. Let the nations themselves speak. They have women who are their mothers, sisters, daughters that they've sent to Oxford, Harvard, Yale, and everything. They are pretty stuck in the developed nation. They would wish to be back home where they got invested in, but because there's nowhere to come. I would have thought that the men will wake up and smell the coffee right now if they are men that are in decision making, and they will be more than anxious to bring the women because they've invested in their daughters and they've invested in their sisters. But their sisters and daughters, they are stuck in developed nations because they're second-class citizens in those nations. Wouldn't it be a lot better if they migrate back and they continue the legacy? So I just want to say that the men need to wake up and do the right thing, not because a nation or some policy say, do the right thing. Create an environment where these women and girls can come back home and bring their brain power. Look at what they do. The Chinese system is a good example. Once their children are done, once they graduate, they come to the best of schools here in America or wherever they go. Once they're done, they are going back home on the next plane. And they get all of this. They create an environment for them to be leveraged. So that's what we need to do for us, especially for the women, because most of us want to give back. But how can you give back when you don't even understand the system? So it starts with that financial inclusion, whereby we have the resources, we have the right networks like you and many others who can help us and give us that backbone to say that even though we're women, we have this network of relevance. When people begin to see that, trust me, nobody will look at what you are. When I started with the Bank of America, I was looked at all of those 4 things. By the time I finished, I was on the golf course with the best of anybody, because then I was just looked at as Remi. Remi they don't remember a black female accent Nigeria. If I have my accent, they will listen well enough to hear me because they saw my value over the long haul. So what we need to do is create a setting where these women, we can help them see their value, create a financial inclusion model that everybody can play, whether you're in the village or wherever. So those in the village can embrace those who are in the cities and not feel like they're their enemies. They can see we're in this together. And the diaspora has a lot to do with it. And I'll stop there, Dr. Musa.
That's great. My last question from you is, if you become the head of state, your country, so what you will do for your women?
What I would do if I become the head of state of my nation, first of all, is to ensure that we have policies that support and incentivizes financial inclusion. Mm-hmm. That is very important, because being a former banker and finance person, when you do not have resources, especially technical and financial, you will be limited. So that will be something that I will mandate, that financial inclusion has to be heavily weighted on the women. And then we will incentivize those companies, whether being banks and so forth, who goes the extra mile to ensure that they lead the women to the river and they drown them to drink if they can. Meaning show them, don't just give them all this blueprint and get them confused and they don't know what the next step is. I would give people meritocracy based on results. That's number one. Then for the women, of course, the majority of the cabinet, at least 70%, will be women. Let them get a feel for what it is to be a minority in a majority, because that's what we've seen forever. So 70% will be all women, reputable and competent women, not just women because they're women. They will be the best top-notch women who will be at the table, who can face anybody, and 30% will be men. And then, of course, the girl child, it's very important. We've got to catch them young. We've got to catch them young. We will create a work-life balance that is second to none, whereby as a mother, you do not have to trade your career for your family. You create a balance with results. I mean, you're not just going to have a free ride because you are a wife, mother, and all of that. There will be requirements, but we will understand. We'll give people the work-life balance so that people can put their best in what they do and do it well. And lastly, what I would do is for all the emerging leaders, whether they are male or female, our boys and girls who are up and coming, we would design programs to help them to find who they want to be. We would design environment. Their school, the education will be an environment whereby whether you're rich, poor, and whatever, we bring all these young people and give them the best of education, an environment where everyone can feel relevant in their own way, and ensure that healthcare is second to none. Make sure there's good healthcare systems where it's preventive medicine, not just when somebody is sick, preventive, and at some point make it affordable. I can say 300%, make it affordable so that we get our philanthropists to support. And definitely accountability and transparency. If anybody messes up, one strike, you are in trouble. We're not going to give chances for people to do things that are hurting the majority. So there will be zero tolerance for people who break the laws. I mean, the laws will be there in black and white. And if people break the laws, they will have to answer to the law. There would not be any going around who you know and who you don't know. That will be how I would run my own show if I were given the opportunity to lead any nation.
That's great. I think it's the same like in New Zealand, we saw a female rulers. You can see how calm, peaceful, and progressive the country is. Mm-hmm. Same way, if more female will lead the countries, I'm sure it will have more harmony, rule of law, and more better creative countries we will get into. Mm-hmm. So with this, I want to thank you for your valuable inputs, and I'm sure that audience has got a lot from your inspirational story, success story, and your thoughts.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and we look forward to more conversations with results. Thank you for all you do.